hotel that never lets go. This story happened a few years ago. My name's Alex, and I was 26 at the time. I was driving back from a business trip when I got caught in a violent thunderstorm. Rain poured down in sheets, making the road nearly invisible. Far ahead, I saw a flickering sign that read, Lakeview Hotel. The light was dim, but it was the only option to wait out the storm. The hotel stood off the main road, near the edge of a lake. The building looked neglected, the facade was peeling, and the windows were coated in dust. But the lights in the windows were on, and I thought, maybe it's not that bad. I stepped inside, and the sound of the doorbell echoed through the silence. The lobby was cold and dimly lit. Behind the counter stood a man about 60, tall and gaunt, with pale skin. His eyes struck me as odd, too dark, almost devoid of color. "Welcome to Lakeview," he said. "It's nothing fancy, but it's dry and warm." His voice was flat, almost hollow. I paid in cash, and he handed me a key to a room on the second floor. "Go out at night. Don't pay attention to what you hear," he added as I turned to leave. His words made me uneasy, but I chalked it up to fatigue. As I walked down the hallway to my room, I noticed how unnaturally long and dark the corridors were. The doors to the other rooms were chipped and cracked as if they hadn't been opened in years. My room was small but functional. An old wooden bed, a chair, a dresser, and a faded mirror on the wall. I locked the door, changed into dry clothes, and fell onto the bed, drifting off the moment my head hit the pillow. The first night, I woke up to a strange sound. It was like someone was scratching at my door. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the sound came again, slow, deliberate scraping. A chill ran through me. I got up, summoning what courage I had, and approached the door. Peering through the peephole, I saw nothing, just darkness. But the feeling that someone was standing on the other side was almost tangible. I double-checked the lock and tried to calm myself. Then I heard it again, but this time came from the wall near the bed, a strange, guttural whisper. It didn't sound human, more like the static-filled hum of a broken radio. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I sat awake on the bed with the light on, not daring to close my eyes until morning. At dawn, I packed my things and decided to leave, but as I walked down the hallway to the lobby, I noticed something strange, wet footprints on the floor outside my door. They didn't look human. The toes were long and twisted, like they belonged to a creature that crawled on all fours. When I reached the lobby, the owner greeted me with the same empty smile. "How was your night?" he asked. I didn't answer, instead asking how far the nearest normal hotel was. "You're not going anywhere," he replied. I stepped back, feeling a sudden chill behind me. Turning around, I saw figures moving in the mirrors on the walls. They weren't human, elongated shadows with hollow eyes. "You're part of the story now," the man said. "This place is your home." I tried to run, but no matter which door I went through, I ended up back in the lobby. The rain outside had turned into a solid wall of water, impossible to penetrate. Panic set in. I reached for my phone, but there was no signal. I spent the whole day searching for an exit, but every door led me back to the same room where I'd spent the night. Then I saw it. Words etched on the mirror in my room. "You'll stay here too, like the rest of us." Now, I'm sitting here in the same room, typing this out on my laptop. Time doesn't move the same way here. In the mirror, I can see the figures behind me. They're the ones who stayed here before me. Their faces are pale, their eyes empty. I can feel myself becoming one of them. If you're reading this, stay far away from the road by the lake and never ever stop at Lakeview. The Whispering Gas Station. This story happened about 10 years ago, but it still haunts me to this day. My name is Ryan, and at the time I was 24, I worked late nights as a delivery driver in a small Midwestern town, often driving long stretches of empty highway. One night, I was driving back from a delivery when my gas light came on. I was miles away from the nearest town, but up ahead I saw a flickering neon sign. It read, "Gas and Go." It looked like an old, run-down gas station, barely visible under the dim glow of a single streetlight. It was almost midnight, and I had no choice but to stop. The station looked abandoned. The paint on the building was peeling, the windows were cracked, and the pumps looked like they hadn't been used in decades, but the lights inside were on. and I could see someone moving around. As I stepped out of my car, I noticed how unnaturally quiet it was. No wind, no insects, just the hum of the flickering sign above me. Inside, a man stood behind the counter. He looked to be in his late 50s with gray, unkempt hair and a thin, almost skeletal frame. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was pale, like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. "Filling up?" he asked in a flat tone. "Yeah," I said, handing him cash. He gave me a key attached to a wooden block. "Pump 3, he said. When I walked out to the pump, I noticed something odd. The nozzle was caked with rust, and the handle felt ice cold despite the mild night. As I pumped gas, I thought I heard a faint whisper. "Help me." I froze. The voice was so quiet I thought I'd imagined it. I looked around, but there was no one there, just the sound of the gas flowing. When I went back inside to return the key, the man behind the counter gave me a strange look. "Don't stay here long," he said abruptly. "What do you mean?" I asked, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. "Things happen here, things you don't want to see." I wanted to press him for more, but something about the look in his eyes told me not to. I thanked him and walked out, trying to shake off the unease. As I started my car and pulled out onto the highway, I noticed something in my rearview mirror. A figure was standing by the pumps, watching me. It wasn't the man from inside. This figure was taller, with distorted limbs and a hunched posture. Its face was hidden in the shadows, but I could feel its gaze. I hit the gas, speeding away as fast as I could. But no matter how far I drove, the sense of being watched didn't leave me. Then, the radio in my car turned on by itself. Static filled the speakers, followed by a faint voice. "Why didn't you help me?" I turned the radio off, my hands trembling. My headlights flickered, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw something dart across the road. After driving for what felt like hours, I realized something horrifying. I was back at the gas station. The same flickering sign, the same pumps. My gas gauge was empty again, even though I had just filled up. Panicked. I parked my car and ran inside. The man behind the counter looked up at me, his expression calm, almost bored. "You can't leave," he said. "What do you mean?" I yelled. "I just drove for miles." He sighed, as if he'd had this conversation 100 times. "You're stuck now, just like the rest of us." I noticed something I hadn't before, a wall of photos behind the counter. They were old, black and white pictures of people standing in front of the gas station. Each one had the same hollow look in their eyes. "What is this place?" I whispered. "It's at the station," he replied. "It's what's underneath." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the ground beneath me began to rumble. From the corners of the room, dark, shadowy figures emerged. Their forms twisted and shifting, moving closer, their hollow eyes fixed on me. I tried to run, but the door wouldn't budge. The man behind the counter just stood there, watching. "You should have listened," he said softly. The shadows enveloped me, their whispers filling my ears. I saw flashes of other people, people like me who had stopped here over the years. Their faces were frozen in terror, trapped in the same nightmare. When I woke up, I was sitting in my car, parked at the side of the highway. The gas station was gone, replaced by an empty field. My car was out of gas, but my phone was back in my pocket. When I looked through my photos, I found one I didn't remember taking. It was of the gas station, with me standing in front of it. My face was pale, my eyes hollow. I've never told anyone about that night, until now. But if you're ever driving down Highway 53 late at night and see a gas station called Gas and Go, don't stop. No matter how empty your tank is, keep driving. The lake house. My name's Zach, and I've always been a sucker for adventure. This story happened about 5 years ago, but I can still feel the chill crawling down my spine when I think about it. It was late August, and my friends and I, Alex, my brother, his girlfriend, Molly, and our childhood buddy Travis, decided to spend a weekend far away from the city noise. We grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and wanted a break from it all. Alex found a listing online for a cabin by a lake called Greystone. The photos made it look like the perfect getaway. Isolated, surrounded by forest, and right by the water. It was cheap too, which should have been our first red flag, but we were excited and packed up for the trip. The drive started great. Alex's old Toyota barely fit the four of us in our gear, but the vibe was good. Music blasting, Molly singing along, and Travis cracking his stupid jokes. The road got rougher the closer we got to the lake. Paved asphalt turned to dirt, and the trees seemed to press in closer. When we finally saw the cabin, it was like it appeared out of nowhere. The place looked wrong. It was old, with peeling wooden walls and narrow windows that reminded me of empty eye sockets. The yard was overgrown with weeds, and tall pine trees cast heavy shadows over the whole area. "Looks atmospheric," Travis joked nervously. Inside, the place wasn't much better. The wooden floors creaked with every step, and the walls were lined with faded paintings of people who seemed to stare right through you. Still, we shrugged it off as part of the cabin's charm. We dumped our bags, set up, and headed outside to enjoy the lake. The first day was fine. We swam, grilled some food, and laughed around the campfire. But as the sun went down, things started to feel off. While we were sitting by the fire, Molly suddenly froze. "I swear I just heard someone whisper my name," she said, looking over her shoulder. We laughed it off, but she looked genuinely freaked out. "No, seriously, it was right next to my ear." Travis grabbed his flashlight and shone it into the trees. Nothing but darkness. "Probably just the wind," Alex said, but we all knew there wasn't a breeze that night. When we went to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Around 2 a.m., I heard the floorboards creak, like someone was walking in the hallway. I thought it was one of my friends, so I got up to check. But when I looked, the hall was empty. The next morning, things got stranger. Molly found footprints in the dirt near the cabin. They looked human, except for the toes. They were unnaturally long and ended in what looked like claws. The tracks led from the lake to the porch and stopped abruptly. "You guys aren't messing with me, right?" Alex asked, his voice shaking a little. We all shook our heads. This wasn't a prank. Later that day, we found an old mirror in one of the bedrooms. The frame was cracked and painted black, like someone had tried to cover up the carvings on it. When we looked into it, our reflections seemed off. They lagged behind our movements by a split second, and when I glanced over my shoulder in the mirror, I saw something move. But when I turned around, there was nothing there. That night, everything went to hell. We were sitting in the living room when we started hearing voices. At first, they were faint, like someone whispering far away, but they got louder. Some of them were crying, others laughing, and then came the footsteps, slow and deliberate, walking toward the cabin. The front door creaked open. Standing there was a figure, woman-like, but not human. She wore a tattered white dress. In her face was just a dark, featureless blur. She didn't move, just stood there. "We need to go, now," Travis whispered. We didn't need to be told twice. Grabbing what little we could, we bolted for the car. As we sped away, I glanced back at the cabin. There, in the upstairs window, was a man. He wore a hat and had an unnaturally long face. His features stretched into a grotesque grin. We never went back to Greystone Lake, but sometimes late at night I still hear those voices, soft whispers just beyond the edge of hearing. And every now and then when I look in a mirror I see a shadow behind me that disappears when I turn around.